What is going on, guys? Today I bring you round 5 of Torneio de Cucujões. In this round I got paired up against Daniel Freitas. He's a 1457 rated player, so about 100 points lower than me. And yeah, I was very excited to keep performing in this tournament. So I had the white pieces and I started with e4. My opponent went e5 and I went knight c3. Here, normally I go bishop c4, but most of the time it transposes to knight c3 on third move. But yeah, my opponent goes bishop c5 here, and I go bishop c4. So we kind of transpose to the lines that I normally go for. Here my opponent goes d6, and it kind of took me a little bit out of prep. I haven't seen this move in a long while, and I didn't really know what was the idea here compared to other lines. So I just decided to play what I normally do against other moves. I just played d3. My opponent goes knight c6, and here we have a pretty much just symmetrical position, and I decided to try to spice things up with knight a4 going directly against his bishop. He goes bishop b6, and I don't think twice. I just take on b6. He takes back with the a pawn, and I play a3. And here, it's completely equal, but I did like what I got from these first 6 moves of the game, of the opening. I got the bishop pair, and and I also damaged his structure on the queen side. So I was very happy with this outcome of the opening. Here my opponent goes h6, kind of stopping ideas with bishop g5 probably, and I just go knight e2. And here you might ask, why knight e2 and not knight f3? So I didn't go knight f3 because in this opening, this kind of bishop opening or Vienna game, however you want to call it, you really want to play for f4, castle short, play f4, and have an attack against black's king side. Here my opponent goes knight f6, so just developing normally, and I go bishop e3. And bishop e3 might look a little bit weird, because what about knight g4 here, attacking our bishop? Yeah, I wasn't really afraid of that because I can just go bishop d2, and what is this knight doing here? Not much, honestly, right? What can he do? There's no point. If he tries to bring his queen out, I can easily just play knight g3, and there's no threat. I can castle next, and it's all good. And the same goes for like queen f6. Here I can even just play f3, and this knight is trapped. So yeah, that would be not ideal for my opponent. But yeah, my opponent didn't go knight g4. He went queen e7, and I went h3. Actually, I'm gonna tell you guys one thing. You guys that play tournaments probably already realized this, but for people that want to get into tournament play, OTB, one thing that you will see a lot, at least in my level, which is kind of more lower to intermediate level, people will wait for you to castle first so they can decide where to castle. And this is very common. This happened in a lot of my games so far. And most of the times this waiting moves, trying to see if you castle short, I'll attack on the king side very quick. If you castle long, I will attack on the queen side quickly, and I'll just leave my king in the middle because there's no worries. Actually, that probably backfires most of the time if you actually play in the center, for example, when your opponent has his king in the middle. But yeah, watch out for that. h3 here was simply with the idea of stopping bishop g4, although I don't think that bishop g4 was that necessary to stop. Here my opponent goes knight a5, which you will see that it is a bad move. I go bishop a2, trying to preserve my bishop, and my opponent goes bishop e6. And this was his first big mistake, actually. This sequence of moves was really bad, and I'm gonna tell you why. So, the idea with knight a5 is to attack my bishop and to take it. But knight a5 doesn't really make sense because I can just go bishop a2, and this knight is just looking very, very awkwardly placed on a5 on the rim without any prospects, and probably has to go back. And after knight a5, my opponent followed with bishop e6, so still going after the bishop. But the thing is that he kind of wasted the move, because here after h3 he could just simply play bishop e6, and it would result in the same thing, because now I probably would have to take. And in the game I ended up doing exactly that, just taking on e6. And there's also no justification to be afraid of bishop b5 here, because I mean your pawns are already doubled. If I take your knight here, and you actually get a better pawn structure to strike in the center, so yeah, this would actually be great for him, because I actually just wasted the tempo going bishop b5, and he can even strike with d5 already, and his position will be actually very good. So yeah, these are the small mistakes that can make a difference in the long run, you know, this waste of tempos. So I took on e6, my opponent took with the queen on e6, and I played castle, which the computer doesn't like. The computer actually says that c4 here was like really good, good opportunity to play c4. I actually didn't even understand at first, and I don't think I considered this during the game, because after knight c6, for example, it just feels like what this c4 move accomplished. Okay, I kind of have a grip on d5, but I also gave away this d4 square. It's kind of tough to say, but here the computer just says castle and the castle, and then proceed with knight c3, knight d5, which yeah, it makes sense now that I'm watching. And but I underestimated the power of the d5 break, which is actually very important for him. And yeah, now I understand that stopping d5 is actually very good. Also, he doesn't really have ideas of playing c6 d5, because this pawn is always weak. So yeah, I kind of underestimated this d5 break, which yeah, I should have tried to control with c4 now that I'm looking. But I castled, and here it is what most people fear: g5, striking right on the king side and trying to mate me. And yeah, this might look scary, but it's actually just not scary at all. And one other thing that I want you guys to learn, and I want to give you guys some ideas, is that you know, my trainer once said to me, and I'm not gonna quote him because I don't remember exactly, but the idea was that, you know, when you're afraid of castling, for example, like this, or you're afraid of making a move because you think that you will be attacked, try to ask yourself, did I do something wrong? Did I do like something that goes against the principles of like just chess? Did I do something wrong? Is castling bad? Should castling be bad here? Like, should I not get my king to safety? Of course you should get your king to safety. Of course you should castle. So I didn't do anything wrong. So this attack can't really be good. And by you just thinking like that, it actually makes the attack way easier to defend, because like deep down inside you know that you didn't do anything wrong, and probably your opponent is overextending and just bluffing. And that's exactly what this is. This is just a bluff, you know. You shouldn't be afraid of castling because you get attacked. Like, there's actually no attack, even though it looks like there is an attack. So yeah, I hope you guys understood what I was trying to say, and it's actually a really good lesson that I learned from my trainer. Not fear unprincipled attacks, you know. And here I played knight g3, which is a really good way to actually answer the attack. Now my knight is ready to jump on f5 and start causing trouble and stopping this pawn storm here on the king side. For example, if my opponent played g4, just really recklessly trying to open my king, I would just play knight f5. And do you want to take on h3? Well, goodbye queen. Right, goodbye queen. So what do you do now? I guess you should castle soon, otherwise, like, I'm threatening just knight g7. If you really try to just attack with rook g8, you just drop a pawn, and yeah, this is not looking good at all. This is not looking good at all. No. This is not looking good at all. I also can just play h4 and actually stop your attack altogether. I mean, you want to go g3, like, if you're just really trying to play like this, nah, this doesn't work, and you shouldn't be afraid of this type of caveman attacks. So yeah, this was just an example. My opponent played knight c6, trying to get back into the game with the knight, because as you saw, like, you just wasted the tempo. And here it was my second chance to really strike with c4, for example. Here I just played d4, which is not a good move. In the game I thought it was a smart idea, and the idea was that if he took here, just take, and this king is still in the middle, and I'll get a quick rook e1, rook d1, knight f5, and I'll be good. But the thing is that here my opponent can even just castle, not this. He can castle here, and you know, it's double-edged. It's double-edged. He definitely has more pressure here on the king side, and he's already in safety. But yeah, I'll also strike fast with something like b4, a4, a5, but it's double-edged. In the game, after d4, my opponent goes knight e7, which, yeah, kind of surprised me, and I started thinking for a while, and I actually found a really good way to punish this knight e7 move, which is definitely a mistake. Here I played d5, and yeah, it's kind of going against my first plan. My first plan was to open things up because his king was in the middle, but I saw a continuation that was actually pretty forcing and pretty nice. Here his queen is attacked, so he has to move back. He moves back to d7, and now queen f3. And the idea with queen f3 is that I'm attacking the knight, and there's no really comfortable way of defending this knight. I mean, he either moves this knight somewhere to g8 or h7, which is kind of awkward, or he plays a knight e on g8, defending the knight, but putting the knight back on this square, undeveloping it, and his pieces are just lacking coordination. His king is still in the center. You just look at this position and you know that white is much better. But how do you actually continue? Here I played knight f5, which is nice, and my opponent plays rook h7, which, yeah, it stops knight g7, but yeah, this is already a very uncomfortable position for black, you know. Here I played c4, which is very nice, just pawn storming on the queen side, and really just going all in, trying to open things up, because like my opponent is just stuck and very uncoordinated. Here he plays long castle, which is, yeah, it looks natural to just finally try to put the king into safety, but yeah, the computer hates it and thinks that I just have an unstoppable attack. Here I played b4, which is not the favorite of the computer. The computer wanted a4, and after something like king b8, just a5, opening things up this way. Yeah, which is understandable, but let's say after b5 the computer wants c5. Yeah, this is insane. But I went for what I thought was also just as good as a4. I played b4 with the same idea of just opening the queen side, putting my rooks here, and just mating him. And meanwhile, like, his all attack on the king side is just completely over. He doesn't have any coordination. His pieces are just stuck here, very awkwardly placed, and I have a free hand on attacking. So I was feeling very good at this point in the game. Here my opponent brings back the knight on e7, and I play knight takes e7. Kind of funny that the computer is suggesting knight takes d6 check, and it kind of at first took me a while to understand why. Like, I'm thinking my opponent can just take on d6 with the queen and is defending the knight, but after c5 here, he takes on c5 with the pawn, and now bishop takes on c5 is very strong, attacking the queen, attacking this knight. The queen is still pressuring on f6, and yeah, it is tough to suggest a move here for black. But I didn't see this, and I played the more natural knight takes on e7 check. He captured back with the queen, and here I just played c5. I just decided to just open things up. My pawn took with the b pawn, I recaptured with the c pawn, and after d takes on c5, I actually captured with the bishop, and my bishop is hanging, but after queen takes on c5, his knight is still hanging. And we kind of traded pieces here, but I have a threat, and it's kind of hard to meet it. My threat here is simple. I just play queen f5 check, and I pick up the rook. And I'm also attacking this pawn on e5, and I'm attacking the pawn on f7, h6. So this is actually, I thought that this was a very good idea, and indeed it was. The computer likes it. My opponent plays rook h8, kind of defending the rook, and I take the pawn on e5. Kind of weird that the computer just wants rook fc1. I thought that this probably didn't work. Let's say queen d6. Computer wants queen f5, but I saw that I could win a pawn, and I liked it quite a lot. So I just took on e5. My opponent plays queen d6, and here I play queen d4, keeping the queens on the board, because I thought that if I traded queens here, that it would have better chances of drawing this, because he's only down a pawn, and this pawn is more of a liability than a strength. And my opponent plays rook e8. I play rook c1, and my opponent plays king b8. And this was a very important decision. How do you continue the attack for white? I actually played the best move, which I'm very proud of, which is just rook ab1, and saying, you can take my pawn, and if you take my pawn, you'll probably get mated, so watch out for that. And just my rooks are just staring right down the king side, and my queen also ready for just the attack. And here my opponent, after thinking for a bit, played queen takes a3, and I thought that this was impossible. This couldn't work. Like, you couldn't just grab that pawn. That was too risky in my opinion. And indeed it was. Actually, as you see by the eval bar, it's plus 10. So there's a forcing win that just ended the game right here. And I thought I didn't even calculate queen takes a3, because I really thought that he wouldn't play that, because that is just looks just insane. And here, after thinking for a while, I decided to play rook a1. My opponent plays queen d6, and here I kind of struggled to see a continuation. Here we were getting a little bit low on time, not too low. I think here he probably had yeah, he probably had like 8 minutes maybe, so he had a low time. Here I probably had like, I would want to say like 10, 11 minutes maybe. Yeah, I would like to say that. And here, I don't want to make this as an excuse, but my opponent was so annoying, bro. He was making so much noise. Like, he was just about to cry, bro. He was just like shivering and making weird noises, and it was very annoying. But yeah, I was just trying to concentrate and ignore him and try to just look into a move that wins. And I ended up playing Queen A7, and after King C8, yeah, I just couldn't see anything that won. I played Queen A8 check, and after King D7, I just took on B7, which is just losing most of the advantage. Still better, but kind of tricky. After Rook takes C4 here, I played Queen B5 check, which just is a big blunder that just lets him escape from the mating net and threats. But yeah, here I want you guys to, after Queen D6, I want you guys to pause the video and try to find the best continuation, or one of the continuations that win for white. I want you guys to try to calculate and come up with something that just straight up wins the game. Write down in the comments if you want your variation. 85% of you guys that watch my videos aren't subscribed. If you enjoyed the videos, I would highly appreciate if you could hit that subscribe button. Let's get back into the video. So yeah, for you guys that want to know what the actual best continuation is, according to the engine, the engine gives like quite a lot of lines. For example, my line after Queen A7 check, excuse me, and King C8, the computer wants Queen A4 here, kind of stopping the king from going into D7, E7, F8, just moving the king away. And here, it's kind of hard to suggest a move already for black, so he can't go with the queen on D7 because it's just mate here. He can't go with the rook on D7 because it's mate as well. I'm trying to figure out like a decent move for black here. Let's say he plays B6. Yeah, the computer already gives mate in 8 after something like Queen B5 with the threat of going Rook A8, and let's say you go back, try to defend this threat, Queen A6, and yeah, you're just getting mated. So that's one of the examples. Let's say the best line is Rook E7 here, Queen B5 with the threat of going Rook A8, and yeah, how do you actually stop it? King B8 looks like the only way, but yeah, after Rook CB1, just making these threats, there's not much you can do. B6 runs into the same thing with Queen A6. C6 of course doesn't work because of D takes C6, and what are you doing? And Queen B6, just desperately trying to trade queens, also doesn't work to Queen A4, and yeah, there's no way to stop this threat. If you try to go here, your queen is hanging, so you probably have to sacrifice your queen. So just subtle moves actually do the job in this variation, which definitely I didn't realize. It looks simple now after looking back at it. Also, another one was Rook CB1, just a very subtle move, just moving the rook to the B file here. Yeah, I mean, if you try to run with King C8, there's Queen A4, and the same idea, which is super good and super creative. You just stop the king from going into the D file, and there's also no way to stop uh, this this threat of the queen here, because there's always mate on a8, and if you try to, for example, trade queens, it doesn't really help, because I can always dodge the queen trade and attack your queen. So you have to move your queen back, and something like just rook a8, king d7, and here queen a4 check. It's incredible. King d6, you're already losing the queen with check. King e7, you're losing the queen either way. So it's it looks simple now that I looked at it and we are analyzing, but the idea is really to play queen a4 in the variations and stop this king from running away. And once the queen challenges you, you can just step back and everything is hanging. So pretty cool idea, playing queen b5 here, and his king just kind of runs away, and we end up just trading a lot of pieces, and we reach this this endgame, which is just equal material, pawns on the same side of the board, and his king is perfectly safe. Yeah, just agreed to a draw here, and yeah, it was not the greatest result. Also, one thing that I want to mention, back when we were in this position and my opponent was making like a lot of noise and just distracting me, one thing that you have to know is that that will sometimes happen, and that is not an excuse, because you still have to perform even if you're like your opponent is making noise, or it's just like something is happening on the playing hall. You have to perform still. And if I was better at tactics, even if my opponent was crying or just screaming out loud, I would be able to find the winning continuation with around like 9 to 10 minutes on the clock. That should be enough. Even probably like 3 minutes should be enough to just find the idea, which was not that hard to see. But one thing that I can recommend you guys is to, and I'm doing this now, after this game I kind of started doing it more and more, it is to, when you're doing tactics, you're training at home, puzzles, or even if you're just looking at games from like grandmasters, masters, whatever, actually just have some distraction on for example, you can have some music playing, or you can have a video playing next to your monitor or next to your chessboard where you're training. Just have some distraction. And I think this is actually good, because you're preparing yourself to have that in a game, and when in the game that distraction happens, you are already used to having some distraction, and it actually will not bother you because you're training at home with the distractions, and yeah, it ends up feeling just like home and natural. And as I said, I'm not trying to make an excuse. I failed the tactic, not because my opponent was making noise, honestly. Maybe if he was making less noise, it would be easier for me to spot. But honestly, I think I wouldn't spot it even if the playing hall was that silent. Because yeah, that you had to see the idea. If you didn't see the idea with queen a4, you wouldn't get it. And I definitely didn't see it. And yeah, I just need to keep working on my tactics, which is definitely the weakest point in my game. And yeah, a draw is a draw. I ended up losing like 3 rating points, so that's pretty much nothing. And yeah, we move on, and hopefully next game I'll be able to perform better. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the tips, the advice that I gave you, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.